Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're taking something that usually sounds deeply mystical, transcendental meditation and Kundalini, and we're going to break it down into a strictly biomedical, mechanical process. I mean, usually when we hear the word Kundalini, right, our minds immediately go to ancient temples, mystic gurus, and these almost magical states of being. We treat it as something totally outside the realm of hard science. But what if we look at it through a purely physical lens? What if hitting a state of profound transcendence is at the end of the day just a matter of human plumbing, acoustics, and neurological wiring? It's a fascinating angle, and together we're going to map out exactly what is happening inside the human body when it enters these altered states. To really set the stage for this anatomical journey we're going on, we have to ask a highly unusual question. Can an air conditioning duct trigger enlightenment? Seriously. I know it sounds completely absurd. We're so conditioned to believe that spiritual awakenings take, decades of silent retreats and intense, grueling inner work. But as you'll see by the end of this explainer, the low, steady hum of an everyday household appliance could theoretically do the exact same thing to your brain as years of intense meditation. Keep that bizarre idea in the back of your mind as we unpack the science here. So this strange question brings us directly to the Bentov biomedical model. This was famously detailed in Dr. Lee Sinella's book, Kundalini, Psychosis, or Transcendence. The guy behind the model, Itzhak Bentov, was this brilliant inventor who essentially said, okay, let's strip away all the esoteric language surrounding Kundalini awakenings. Instead of talking about auras and chakras, he focused on observable reality. We're talking heartbeats, sound waves, brain cavities. He created a model that actively attempts to ground the most profound, mystical human experiences into observable, testable, entirely mechanical reality. Right, so how does it actually work? Well, according to Bentov, traditional meditation kicks off a very specific physical chain reaction. Step 1 is intense, protracted, single-minded concentration. The practitioner focuses deeply on drawing energy up the spinal cord. Now, this intense focus doesn't just quiet the mind, it actively alters the physical rhythm of your heart. And that is step 2. The actual rhythm of your heartbeat shifts. And then step 3 is where the physics really takes over, because this altered heartbeat creates what are known as acoustical standing waves right inside your head. Now, it's absolutely crucial that we understand what these waves actually are. We are not talking about brain waves here, no alpha or theta waves you'd measure on an EEG. Actually, we're talking about literal physical vibrations echoing within the fluid of your brain's cavities. Think of it like taking a tuning fork and using it to make a glass of water vibrate. When your heart rhythm alters from that deep concentration, it sets off sympathetic vibrations in the fluid-filled centers of your brain, specifically the third and lateral ventricles. So your altered heartbeat is essentially playing the fluid in your brain like a finely tuned instrument, setting up these continuous standing acoustical waves. And these standing waves, they don't just sit there sloshing around in the fluid. They get conducted directly into your cerebral cortex, specifically targeting the right hemisphere. These waves continuously stimulate the right hemisphere until the cortex becomes what Bentov describes as polarized. And here is where it gets super interesting. Because our brains are cross-wired to our bodies, this right brain activity perfectly explains a really well-documented phenomenon. People undergoing a Kundalini awakening almost always report that the physical sensations and symptoms start on the left side of their bodies. The biology literally lines up perfectly with the ancient reports. So as the cortex polarizes, it conducts a signal along something called the homunculus. If you're not familiar with that term, just think of the homunculus as a physiological map of your entire body, sort of draped across the surface of your brain. Every single part of you, your hands, your face, your legs, has a corresponding physical location on this brain map. So when those acoustical standing waves polarize the brain, the resulting signal traces a very specific path. It starts down at the area representing your toes, and it slowly moves all the way up, which, amazingly, maps identically onto the ancient descriptions of Kundalini energy rising from the base of the spine all the way to the crown of the head. When this signal completes its full loop, traveling all the way up the homunculus along the hemispheres, something pretty incredible happens. The current circulating along the sensory cortex basically creates a closed-loop circuit, and this circuit repeatedly hits your brain's internal pleasure centers. So those profound states of bliss, right, that absolute euphoria described by monks and yogis for literally thousands of years, well, according to the Bentov model, it's a direct result of this physical current. It is this extraordinary, built-in biological hack for ultimate euphoria, generated entirely from within. But here is the massive twist in all of this. Traditionally, it takes a period of intense concentration and practice, usually lasting around 5 years, just to bring up the Kundalini and achieve this state. We're talking 5 years of strict discipline, silence, and focused breathing just to alter that heart rhythm and create those waves. Bentov's model, however, points to a modern, completely mechanical shortcut: exposure to external vibrations. You see, you might not actually need the meditation if you can replicate the exact physical trigger from the outside in. And that shortcut comes down to the exact numbers you're looking at right now, a frequency of exact 4 to 7 hertz or cycles per second. This is a very specific, very low frequency range of mechanical or acoustical vibration. And if you subject the human body to this exact vibrational frequency for a prolonged period, Bentov states you can achieve the exact same effect as those 5 years of intensive meditation. The external vibrations literally mimic the altered heart rhythm that sets up the standing waves in the brain fluid, polarizes the cortex, and runs that signal right up the homunculus to those pleasure centers. I have to read Bentov's exact examples of where we find these frequencies out in the real world, because they are incredibly specific and, honestly, kind of hilarious. He literally notes that repeated riding in a car whose suspension and seat combination produce that range of vibrations, or being exposed for long periods of time to these frequencies caused, for instance, by an air conditioning duct, can perfectly replicate this sacred frequency. Think about that for a second. You could literally be commuting to work or just sitting at a desk in a stuffy office building, and the mundane mechanical rumble around you is secretly operating at the exact frequency needed to unlock a mystical state of bliss. So over time, the cumulative effect of these everyday, low-frequency vibrations can actually trigger the exact same physiological chain reaction as half a decade of meditation. Bentov calls this a spontaneous physio-Kundalini sequence, and the key word there is spontaneous. The person experiencing it, they aren't trying to meditate at all. They aren't seeking transcendence. They're literally just sitting in their vibrating car or working under a humming vent. The external environment forces the brain fluid into sympathetic vibration, and boom, the entire biological domino effect kicks off completely unprompted. It's deeply ironic when you think about it, accidentally achieving enlightenment without even trying. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, if it's really this easy, why isn't everyone stuck in afternoon traffic suddenly achieving nirvana? Well, the only catch here is that this spontaneous sequence happens in susceptible people who already possess a particularly sensitive nervous system. Not everyone's internal acoustics and neural wiring are delicate enough to be hijacked by an HVAC system, right? You need to have a nervous system that is uniquely receptive to that 4 to 7 hertz range. But for those select individuals, the modern mechanical world might accidentally be pushing them towards states of profound neurological awakening without them ever trying. It really leaves us with a mind-bending final thought about the fragility of human consciousness. It makes you wonder, are our deepest, most profound spiritual experiences simply a matter of tuning in to the exact right vibration? If the ancient, highly revered state of Kundalini awakening is really just standing waves in our brain fluid tickling our pleasure centers, and if a bumpy car ride can literally trigger it, what does that actually say about the nature of transcendence? Is enlightenment the ultimate spiritual milestone? Or is it just the ultimate biomechanical resonance? I'll let you ponder that the next time you hear a low rumble in your office ductwork. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the mechanics of the world around you.